So welcome to the call. I'm Nadi Hana here with Tammy Roth, and we're going to be getting right into a meditation and then go into the rest of the call. So welcome everyone. I'm going to hand it over to Tammy.
Yeah, so Nadi is going to do a share screen and bring up a beautiful piece of sacred geometry. So we'll actually start with an eyes open meditation. And isn't that lovely?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just with eyes open, just let your gaze soften. Let your breath deepen. And just let the geometry come to you. Just allowing your perception to be drawn to whatever it wants to see in each second, each moment. All the while continuing to just focus on your breath, feeling the breath come into your body. To spend just a few minutes with this very multi-dimensional piece of sacred geometry. And when you're ready, just take a nice, long, deep breath. Maybe close your eyes for a moment. Give your eyes a rest. And just bring your awareness back to the screen. And Nadi, you can bring us back to gallery view now.
Nice. Great.
Right.
Okay. Tammy, do you want to go ahead with an introduction? Start us off.
Sure. So at this stage of the game, like giving an introduction about myself, it's like, whoo, so many lifetimes of, it's like, where do I start? So I think I'll just kind of start about like where I am in the world right now. And that is just being very connected to this expansive evolutionary process we're going through on the planet right now, and how that has really absolutely connected me to sacred geometry to astrology and the galactic, just knowing what all, for the first time in my life, I'm like really recognizing how, like, wow, such a tiny speck in the multiverse, just really understanding the expansion that is available to us all. But from a 3D perspective, I am a former psychotherapist and now a recovery coach slash artist slash priestess slash I don't know, just all these different things, but ultimately just trying to find ways to help guide people into their most expansive state. And I live on the coast in the panhandle of Florida, and I get to interact with dolphins in the real world on a regular basis. So that's my scattered, rambling intro. And I'll add to that I feel like Nadi was just kind of like dropped into my world, and we both believe the dolphins connected us, but it was literally just somehow an email came that I don't even remember the email now, but as soon as I opened it, I'm like, who is this woman? And it was so exciting to read everything that she's about and feel such a resonance. And then I reached out and said, hey, can we have a conversation? And it's just been such resonance ever since. So I'm just so thrilled that we can have a conversation and see what drops in today.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited as well. I think Tammy and I have just been listening, right? We're listening to guidance, listening to spirit that brought us together, the dolphins that brought us together. So yeah, it's wonderful to be here. and wonderful to be joining forces with Tammy and all of you, because it really is a collaborative, like generation of creativity and healing and activation. Not to overuse the word, I'm in Sedona, Arizona, and that word just gets thrown around because activation, transmissions, DNA, I'm getting a little saturated with the spiritual lingo, so I want to keep it real. I have a background as a therapist. I worked for 10 years on an inpatient psychiatric unit as a therapist. So definitely have my roots, anchored in the 3D, although that was about 12 years ago. And so these past 12 years, I've been reprogramming, I've been deprogramming the mental health framework of pathologizing and medicating and, reactive treatment. And I've been moving more towards, I needed to take the leap towards integration and healthy and holistic approaches to wellness. So, I've had a spiritual practice for about 25 years, which has given me the basis to transition. But I left that practice and leapt into a void of uncertainty, of not knowing even what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want that world anymore. And very shortly thereafter, I discovered sacred geometry. It found me. I was drawn to unified physics and really looking at the meta interpretation of our reality. And sacred geometry, I began just as a passion, as drawing, and then moved into an artist, then moved into a teacher of it, and then started moving into the more multidimensional aspects that it can take us to. So I'm passionate about the geometry. It provides such an anchor for me in all of my expansion. And so I love offering it as a modality, quote unquote, to people in transition, to anyone who's drawn to it. And, kind of the next level, there's the 3D level, there's the 2D drawings, there's the 3D level of interacting with the geometries, feeling them, experiencing them, however it comes to you. And then there's the multi-dimensional aspect of that can connect us with our galactic origins, our off-planet aspects of ourselves, our star family. So it's really taken me all the way. It's part of why I love it. And I'm really excited to see what brought everybody here and what we resonate with. So that's a little bit about me and Tammy. And then I'm wondering, Tammy, you feel good with going around and hearing brief introductions from everybody? That's where we're at. That's the next
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, I love when we have a small group, so it can be intimate and interactive. So yeah, as comfortable as you are just sharing, yeah, a little bit about yourself and what you're interested in, that'll help shape the conversation too.
Yeah, and I think we do have a good size, so maybe just 30 seconds or less, just under a minute for sure, so we can keep everyone connected. So anybody like to start us off? We'll do popcorn, or if nobody jumps in, I'll choose somebody.
I'll go. Hi, I'm Penny. I live in Flagler Beach, Florida, which is a little north of Daytona Beach. And I am sitting here trying to remember how I came across this. It landed in my inbox and I just am curious about it. I'm an artist right now, kind of in between jobs, just out of a very toxic relationship, just looking to expand my being and hoping that this can give me some type of an insight. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you
For being here. Yeah. Hi, Mary. Oh, okay. Mary, do you want to jump in?
Well, sure. Got to keep it flowing here. Good to see you again. Last time I saw you was in Sedona last month. So that's how I got here. I'm in San Francisco, where I've lived for a long time. I'm an artist, interior designer, do architecture. I've always drawn a lot. But when I was talking to you about sacred geometry even more, I've always loved drawing with that as a sort of a foundation that's always kept me grounded and anchored within a blueprint, but the energy expands it out so much more to me. That's why I'm here. I've been off planet a lot, and I was on craft at 5 and 6 and 10 and on and off for a long time, and still can't see a lot of my trips off planet doing inside of habitats that I've been sort of trained for and groomed for, from the galactics to my family DNA that goes way back. I'm just here to go with the ride and go with the flow and connect more and let go more and surrender more while we anchor and rise and fly. So I'm here to learn more and stay open and feel a lot more. It's really great to continue feeling more at this beautiful stage we're in and why we're all here today and at this time. So thank you, Nadi, and nice to meet you, Tammy. And it's wonderful to be here with you all.
Oh, Mary, thank you. Glad you're here.
Carol.
I'm Carol Fairbanks from Albany, Oregon, and I'm really got interested in the sacred geometry as I delved into transpersonal art, and especially with Whitney Freya, and found out about the Metatron cube, and now I have stencils, abundant stencils on different types of sacred geometry. And so I'm appreciating at a 2D, maybe a 3D, and I'm really interested in that expansion that you talked about and using it as a tool to grow. Thank you. And hi, Tammy.
Thanks, Carol.
I'm Jennifer, and I've had the pleasure of working with Tammy for a little bit of time now. And to be completely transparent, I know nothing about sacred geometry, but I had learned about it through Tammy, and I am one of those people who feels very disconnected in this transformation that the universe is going through right now. But I'm trying to connect to those people who do feel disconnected, and in that sense, feel connected. And this is just one of the ways that I think I can do that. And I'm just excited about learning about something that I've never heard of before. And I live in Nashville, and I'm originally from San Francisco. So it's nice to be with people from a lot of different places and spaces, and I look forward to it.
Thanks. Good to see you, Jennifer.
You too.
Nice to meet you, Jennifer. And I meant to say a shout out to Carol, Albany, Oregon. I'm from Portland originally, so good to see you. Yeah, and we don't want to assume anybody off camera would like to pop in, but we've got some people joining us, and if anybody would like, hi Lee.
I'll pop in.
Hi.
I'm in Whitney Freya's group, and that's how I got connected to Tammy. And I got an email from her and watched your video, and I was really excited about it. I practice an energy modality that utilizes sacred geometry. And so I'm just always grabbed when I see that. So I'm real happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Can
live
you
in
say a little
Portsmouth,
bit-
Virginia.
Okay, can you say just a minute about that meditation or whatever that tool is?
It's called crystalline consciousness technique. People always give me a hard time when I say crystalline, like I'm in the South, but crystalline consciousness technique. And I learned it from Gia Combs Ramirez.
Hmm.
Have you heard of her?
No.
Okay, yeah. Unfortunately, she passed away last January, but we are a small group, but we still are practicing and teaching and sharing it. It's very, very powerful technique.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know that Tomo messaged me and said it doesn't really work to be on camera, or talking to there in an environment that doesn't work. So totally understandable. And I know I'm always on calls kind of listening in the background. So would anybody else that's off camera like to pop in before we get going? I don't want to.
I'd like to go ahead.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, I'm been interested in sacred geometry for forever, seems like, but I finally was able to take I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. It's cold. I'm wrapped up in a blanket, but I finally was able to take the sacred geometry, this Mandela class since COVID, 2 years. I had to wait, but anyway, I just love the philosophy of Carl Jung. Like he says, when you make a mandala, you find the lost pieces in yourself. And I just love mandala. I love nature. I love mandalas. I love shapes. I love triangles. And this mandala that you see on here, I made this during a Thanksgiving. We had to put our intentions in it. I just intended to have my true self come true. And that's what came out. So, but it was very frustrating with the square. I had a hard time with the square. But yeah, I love it. Even when I make mistakes, it's a lot of fun.
I just want to, I feel like I can't get enough of a look there. I want to just, how do I can't spotlight you here. Oh, well, I wanted to see that up a little bit closer, but I can't find the spotlight. So, okay, that is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thanks.
One of the things that's standing out to me is how we're coming from, I'm thinking even you and me, Nadi, how you're in a place where everybody is talking the lingo, and I'm in a place where nobody is talking like nobody. So I'm very much undercover here. And just thinking about the spectrum, and then even thinking about, some people are very well versed in what we're talking about, and then others are like, I'm not even sure why I'm here. And even that feels powerful. Like, we're just coming from the whole spectrum, and how, even thinking about how Nadi and I are like, we're not even sure what we're doing here, but we felt called to do this. So I guess I just want to, invite us all to just be open to the curiosity of us coming together, and the power of technology, and we're scattered around the country, and just the magic of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could also put it in sort of geometric terms of the grid or the field, right? And what we're tapping into together collectively, how is that intelligence being shared, right? Like the dolphins, and the galactics and the geometry. I mean, there's so many forces that are moving in our subconscious reality, and I think that the geometry and the healing process, it's all bringing our conscious awareness of how we move in the world on board, so I would echo that, Tammy, with how cool it is that we've all been called on the whole spectrum of like, I don't know why I'm here, I don't know how I found this, too. I've got sacred geometry as part of a fundamental meditation. So one of the things that I love about the geometry is it will meet you wherever you're at. It will take you into the next level. It will work so gently with your system, right? Because it's your own intelligence coming back to you. And so it just fits on all levels. It's part of why I'm passionate about it. I think I've said like 3 or 4 times like why I'm passionate about it. So it will become very clear, as to why I'm here as well. So thank you. I think that was a great point.
Well, and I can kind of speak to the other end of the spectrum of that, because Whitney Freya's name has been brought up a few times. So I feel like she's energetically here with us. And for me, so Whitney is a teacher of mine and a friend and a muse, and she created a class on sacred geometry. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I honestly just didn't know much at all about it. And she also invited me to take that class and create a recovery-based class out of it. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing, but it felt inspired, so I did. And that was 3 years ago. And what we found was that by drawing the geometry, and we were really focused on Metatron's cube, but by drawing that and using that process in recovery, everything just expanded. And I kept finding that every time I would draw the flower of life or Metatron's cube, like things would solve, and I would have insights, and I would feel expanded. And so I was experiencing it without understanding it. And so I guess, there's the other end of that spectrum there, that it was just like, wow, this is powerful. And I want to understand more about what I'm tapping into, which was the conversation you and I had previously about like, whoa, what is happening here? Because potent.
Yeah. Right. And there's so much we don't get to know. I'm dealing with sitting in that void lately, in the trust that it takes to walk this life right now.
Right.
I was inspired briefly to just talk about my interpretation of what makes sacred geometry sacred. Like, so we have that established kind of based on what you were saying. This is obviously my interpretation, and there's a ton of different definitions. And I know part of my vision of why we do this calls, and all of the calls that I do, is to kind of plant a seed, right? And there's so much more to learn. And I just want to encourage everyone. It's part of why I teach all the classes, is this is such a nibble, right? There's just infinite studies. But I move with the definition that sacred geometry is sacred for two reasons. Mainly, it aligns with our inner reality as well as our collective reality in the sacred places of those two 3D reality, these 3D embodied experience, for lack of a better frame. So the geometry is so perfectly balanced. The proportions are harmonic and they resonate a state of coherence, right? An aligned energy. And so when we start to work with the geometry or draw it or meditate with it, it begins to bring our systems into that state of harmony. We start to entrain with the proportions, and we are the geometry. And so it starts to bring our physical form online. It starts to bring our spiritual, our energetic, all the aspects of us. It starts to harmonize. And so for me, it really created a sense of alignment that then opened me to receive my guidance, more and more, and led me to my expansion, getting the body tingles, right? As confirmation. So I obsessively drew it and didn't know what was happening, kind of like what Tammy said. I just knew I felt good. I knew good things were happening. And then I started to learn about it, right? So it's that internal process, with meditation, finding that stillness, that still point inside that is reflected in a lot of the geometries, right? That point of stillness, which is where physics and metaphysics meet. Getting ahead of myself. So the sacred within ourselves, working with our light body, working with our Merkaba, all the different geometric structures that we are. And then it's also considered sacred because everything has a geometric form, right? There's not anything that exists in our known reality that doesn't have a geometric pattern. So when you start to tap into that, the illusion of separation begins to break down. And if everything's geometry and we're all the same, then there's a level of connectedness. There's a level of unity consciousness, you could say, that is also sacred in the collective aspect of things. So whether you're using the geometry with an internal focus or using it to connect on the larger scale, it really has the potential to change your life, whether it's changing your internal paradigm and perspective of yourself or of humanity, which feels very important that we're shifting our paradigm and worldview right now. Those are the two elements that I consider sacred, and that it's transformational ability, whether it's recovery, meditation, cosmic journeying. Like I said, it's going to meet you wherever and bring in the sacred elements to this reality. So that's part, that's part of why I think it's so useful. And if anybody has a moment of inspiration too, that's more than welcome. So
I love in the chat, Julie said it's a universal language, and that really resonated with me.
Yeah, me too. Universal language of math. And it's just free of all of our dogma and programming. It's unburdened. And so it really is clean to reflect our process and wherever we're at. Just part of it's awesome. It's amazing. Yeah, Mary.
Oops, wrong thing. Hi. Everything is energy and everything is space and time and pattern to me too. I love that you're talking about this. I've always said I'm connecting inner and outer space because I grew up with rocket scientists on one, my dad and my grandfather, and then my mom's dad and father and grandfather were architects on that. And all I've ever cared about is trying to figure out how I can ground and elevate my weird inner and outer connectedness to everything, which has not been easy. And it's so beautiful. But when my dad was at Princeton with Einstein, he said all his talks were about was geometry and of course math. And he was sort of a smarty pants rocket scientist guy, but he also was very psychic. And he just said, it's always been about good vibes, the good patterns, the good vibes that we talked about. And now we talk about since he's been passed. But I love that everything is connected in this math that is all the cellular, it's everything, everywhere. From all the patterns that we're talking about to all the people from all parts of the globe, it's energy, like all the grids, the ley lines. It's what you're bringing in, Nadi and Tammy and everyone here today. I think that's how we are all connected, is these little pointillism dots of art and design that have grounded me doing architectural stuff like this. I went through the back door for 40 years doing wellness interiors, knowing that I could somehow help people and help ground and elevate me. But thank you for describing it so simply and so beautifully. We all love beauty, and it just embodies beauty of Mother Nature and Father Sky and pure, transparent energy in its finest. So too long, but thank you. I got inspired from all this talk this morning already. So thank you so much.
Oh. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. That's the idea, is the inspiration. Yeah.
And yeah, I was also thinking, Nadi, when you said there's no dogma attached, I thought, well, that's also what makes it sacred. It's like, it's just absolutely pure energy.
It's clean.
Right.
Clean. Yeah.
Or
And so it's
concept,
not,
right? Nothing else is.
no. That's part of how it can help with the deprogramming, right? It's so neutral. And I know that part of my process has been a two-part of deprogramming everything that I've learned, and then the reprogram the way that I resonate with in an aligned life. And so the geometry is so perfectly aligned, and it's a great tool. There was something I was just gonna say, and it had to do with the deprogramming, the reprogram. But one thing I will add is that learning about it and meditating with it is one level very powerful, but the drawing of it, I find, to really take it to the next level. And I know we've got some artists in the room, and certainly Julie's beautiful mandala there. But there's an interface when you're drawing it. There's an interface of activating your energetic system. So that's not to plug my classes by any means. If there's any way you can draw it, that's part of why I teach it, is because it gets into our cellular system. It gets into our various systems in a really effective, powerful way. And I can't remember the other thing I was going to say, but it'll come through, I'm sure. Tammy, do you have an idea of does that inspire anything, or anybody else? Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, as you said it, I was just thinking about how it's been so inspirational in women's recovery, and that ultimately we are deprogramming this old recovery model, even where like we've gotten to this place of not pathologizing at all, but truly seeing the journey of addiction or whatever the issue is, that it's this deep underworld journey that is allowing us to rise up into our true wisdom. And if that's not deprogramming, that was just really validating to hear. I hadn't thought of it. Inspires me to do it even more, because the more I can be deprogrammed, the better. So I love hearing that.
Yeah, Mary.
Sorry, one more thing too. Art heals. I've taught art 6 to 12-year-olds, suicidals, art therapy to cancer kids, teaching mental health professionals now art, just starting doing that this last year, which is really cool. It makes us happy. It makes us feel good. It calms us down when we get lost in the zone of us artists or whatever we do. We get lost in just the pure love and the purity. And that is that's where the stillness comes. We do it when we go in nature. We get when we swim, when we're with the dolphins, or just ourselves in a hot bath with, like I did this morning, still wet. That's why I was late. it's happy, it's kind, and that's what we're coming back to for the first time. We've all been so triggered for so long. I've been trying to get rid of all my deprogramming. We're just trying to find kindness and love again. And that's just to hear these words over and over again this last year is so beautiful. And to hear it today now, we just want calm. We want inner peace. And we get that. We've always gotten that through art and being still and just slowing down and going inside, being quiet. What a concept, right? It takes us to go through the pandemic and world war and floods for all of us to come out of the fight or flight. I mean, I've been in it serious my whole life from all my weird stuff. Like we all have been through weird stuff, but it's peaceful. Even just talking about this is so beautiful. It just brings back joy and happiness. And I've been creating happier, healthier environments for like 50 years. And people say, what does that mean? And they say, oh, now I know what it means. And then to take it a step further with the art that I've done on the side forever that you guys have been doing and what you're all talking about today is the reboot we've all been waiting for. And we are in a renaissance, and thank goodness that we are in this positive shift, because it's been really long and really hard and really lonely in a lot of ways for me and a lot of us to not have all of these layers weaving together, connecting inner and outer space. So
Nice.
Yeah, that's very inspiring. I appreciate all of that. Cover just a huge amount of territory in like 1 minute. But the kind of on the deprogramming theme, one of the things that I'm up against when I'm drawing, you're saying how important the creative process is, and the slowing down and the quiet. Our entire mainstream media and reality and programming of productivity gives us the message that slowing down isn't okay, and that to give yourself the process of art is not okay. Like, so digging out of that and actually prioritizing the transformation that happens just by putting your pencil on the paper, like, it's invaluable. So I love how you're saying just talking about it generates that remembrance of how vital it is, and you could say how vital it is right now in the world that we're living in that you referred to, which is, pretty chaotic. So thank you.
I think we've all been so stressed out for so long, and I don't even use the term like everybody else does, remembrance. I don't ever remember ever being calm. I mean, all my lifetimes, I've done in really cool healing things, design and healing for 94 generations. I've tracked it like all the way back as far as I can go. And this is a new stage. We are, 26,000 years, all the patriarchal stuff we've been doing, and the feminine part too. To actually take time for myself, even though this has been one of the busiest years of my life and been most transitional, I'm okay. And I'm finally calm because I have finally, after being a control freak my whole life and a single parent and, all this stuff that I didn't understand that I was going on, we can all just settle down. And if we do stop and listen, because listening is caring, and what many of us moms, or if we have kids or grandchildren or don't, it's a time of inner peace and outer peace too. And that peace is deliberate, and it's an allowance to me. I always call it allowance. I don't remember. I've had great times. I've traveled the world. I've had great projects and I have great friends. But all the underpinnings of all this other stuff was just always like bubbling up and pulling me down and freaking me out and making me scared. And that's what as we know, the last 70 years has been, from the government, from politics, to the 52 card pickup we're going through right now, where all systems have to change. We are creating our own new blueprint, as I've been saying to people recently. And that's part of sacred geometry that's so beautiful. It's order, but it's kind order, and it's order we pick and choose, and it's our choice to create our new blueprint and our new structure as we move forward now.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. And also, everyone, please do jump in with their beautiful perspectives just like that, Mary. I would add, in the chaotic world, every time I teach, right, I've been teaching for almost 10 years, no matter what, every time I draw a seed of life or just a basic geometry, it is so predictable and it's so consistent. It just shows up the same way. I can count on it and it's soothing. It's very, very comforting that way. And lately I've just been so grateful for that. And I just wanted to add that. And I'm wondering, Tammy, if you want to speak to, I know we have some beautiful souls here that have come through through the recovery channel. And I'm wondering if we could bring that in a little bit in terms of how, and I don't mean to put you on the spot as well, how it came to you through that angle, because yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I was saying, I think it just kind of intuitively flowed in and dovetailed with recovery, and that there's been a group of us who have been navigating this for a little while and not even understanding really. It's like we know it's working, but we're not even, we weren't even like consciously aware of like how it was working. But the evolution of that, what has happened is it definitely got us out of like any kind of pathologizing paradigm, but it also really brought in even more art, creativity, and more of feminine, just like as Mary was saying, that it's like we have a weekly group that ultimately, in this recovery group, we check in about our recovery itself, but also about our creativity and our spirituality. And it's very much using these feminine practices, whether it's astrology, or, which I don't know if that's feminine practice, but a cosmic practice anyway, creativity and divination, and all these tools that we are now calling recovery tools. I mean, back when I got sober 15 years ago, I was doing that. I was discovering that aspect of myself. And now in retrospect, I can see that these kind of tools were really what created a new life for myself. And that's our approach, is we're not focusing on the addiction. We're focusing on expanding into the life you want to create, and bring the energy and the awareness there. And that's raising the vibration. And when you raise your vibration, the frequency of addiction, there's no resonance. And so it falls away. So the geometry is a very big part of that, raising the vibration, but then also these other feminine recovery tools, including art. So it's just so refreshing that way, because you don't have to focus on it just can't survive. It's a very low frequency. And another thing that comes along with addiction is shame, and shame is the lowest vibration. So the more you're raising like all that addiction and shame and fear, it just starts to fall away. There's no charge to pull you back into addiction, because when you've had the real thing, the real high, you don't want the artificial high anymore.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And it can be generated with autonomy. It's not dependent on a substance of any kind.
Exactly.
I was reflecting on the nature of recovery. We're all recovering.
Absolutely.
Like I had that realization of like the programs that have been laid on us so thick, and whether it involves a substance or anything external. And there are degrees of severity. I don't want to minimize that by any means, but this world, I believe, is traumatic at baseline. And so, the reclaiming and the re-empowerment, it's a reclaiming of our own power, because pretty much everything in this world is designed to suck our power away. And especially if you've grown up with severe trauma and then your life has become mostly coping, the creative arts is something we have right at our own fingertips, and it's something we can use to to take back that power, you know, that that is not supported by mainstream media. And obviously there's, you know, there's a whole spectrum, right? There's a lot of folks that have been nurtured and have to lesser degrees, and it's an easier process to put the pen on the paper or sit on the mat, you know, whichever metaphor you want. But there's nobody that escapes either trauma to one degree or isn't working on recovery in a relative way. I was just thinking about that as well.
Yeah, so true. So true.
Yeah. And the other piece in terms of the divine feminine and divine masculine is that when I was talking about the harmonic proportions of the geometry, we're talking about the right and left hemispheres of our brain. We're talking about aligning the divine masculine and the divine feminine that we both have on one spectrum or another. And the geometry, I mean, literally you create an altered state when you were talking about that natural high, because we're so fragmented in our the different aspects of ourselves that by sitting with it, you're bringing everything online that's been totally fragmented. It's really the hemispheres of our brain that blows me away. There's certain shapes that literally, like the flower of life, one side of the shape will be coherent and precise, and the other side will be sloppy and really, you know, off in precision. And it's we're so cut from either one side or the other, you know, left brain and the masculine, or the right brain and the feminine. So I love that part of it too.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating.
It is. It really is. It really is. I'm wondering, do you have other things, or could we open it up to questions if there are any, or where are you at?
No, I'm good to open it up to questions.
Okay, great. Yeah. It's fascinating. Fascinating stuff. Yeah, Carol.
I'm wondering, I know about the flower of life, the Metatron cube. What are some of the other geometric figures that you bring in and meditate on?
Yes. Yeah, Tammy, do you want to talk about what you work with?
I only use the seed of life, flower of life, and Metatron's cube, and then I found your classes and I was like, oh, there's so much here, so I'll defer to you.
Oh yeah, just, you know, and briefly, what I love is how the geometry is hidden in plain sight everywhere. We just take it so for granted. So a lot of the classes are talking about how it's everywhere and bringing our attention to it. For example, Julie's mandala. That is an eightfold geometry, otherwise known in the geometry world as a tesseract or a hypercube, or the geometry of time travel. So the tesseract is with us, you know, every time you come up to a stop sign, that's an octagonal structure, right? It's woven into our subconscious. So I love the tesseract. It's hidden in plain sight in terms of mainstream media. If you remember both the original and the recent Wrinkle in Time, right? It's the whole story is about time travel. And the first sentence in the book says, the tesseract is real, right? It's a real thing. You see it in the Avengers movie. It's the cube that is how the bad guys come into the world and, you know, travel from the other dimensions. You know, and we could say that we see an eightfold geometry here, which, by the way, is a fourth dimensional shape. It doesn't actually exist in the third dimension. And so that's one of the shapes where you can really expand your consciousness into other dimensional realities, right? If you're going to try to draw a fourth dimensional shape, then you have to start contemplating the dimensions beyond that, right? And it's so expansive. It's a real mind-blowing class. I love it. But you've got the tesseract, and then of course you've got within Metatron's cube, part of why it's so powerful is because it has the 5 platonic solids. So that those are 5 shapes that only exist. They meet 3 criteria, and they're the only shapes in our known universe that meet those 5 criteria. And those 5 shapes represent the 5 elements: earth, air, water, fire, and ether, right? Energy, chi, prana, all the things that have been neglected in the Western world. So when you're working with Metatron's cube, you're also working with these 5 platonic solids that are bringing all of the elements of your system online, right? It's bringing those subtle realms of energy bodies and psychic abilities that we've been cut off from. So there's so much more in Metatron's cube in addition to the amazing shape. And then one of those shapes, you know, a lot of the shapes embody the lessons of the mystery schools. This is top secret information because of how transformational it can be. So, you know, you've got the flower of life, you've got Metatron's cube, you've got the Tesseract. You've also, I'm just blank. Oh, you've got my other favorites, the 64 star tetrahedron, which is, it's the geometry of space-time. It's a shape that's within the flower of life. It's extraordinary, very next level information in terms of you've got a shape that has 64 tetrahedral faces, right? 64 triangles. And then that correlates with the 64 codons of our DNA, the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, the 64 on and on and on. There's so much to learn about how the geometry is interconnected. And then, of course, the Sri Yantra, which is a different branch of geometry, but boy, that thing hijacked my reality. I mean, that's a 6x6 piece that I just like evolved into needing to draw. I have 26 Sri Yantras in my reality, and it's that I've drawn. And, you know, all of the geometry that you could consider them portals, right? They are entryways into other realities. But the Sri is truly a portal for me in terms of I consider it to be the Hindu tradition, very advanced technology for how to work with our systems in the most mundane way. It's the most significant yantra in the Hindu pantheon, and so many yantras, and it's considered to be the grantor of wishes and all of your dreams coming true when you work with it. And that's only one level. But it's a profound shape, and I'm passionate about all of them. So I have the classes on all of them. You can tell there's just so much fascinating information. But hopefully that answers your question, Carol. Don't mean to be too long-winded, but is that sufficient? How is that for you? I'm so curious about your arts. It looks so beautiful in the background. It looks like you've been doing this for a while. It just looks beautiful. And hopefully the geometry would be complementary to what you do, but can you say a little bit about your art and your process?
Well, it's one of personal growth, and someone else mentioned, I think it was Mary, I can't remember, that it's fun. It is fun, and it brings me to a place of knowing that there's hope. I think with everything that's going on in the world, I got to a place where I felt like, you know, it's all going, you know, where in a handbasket. And I'm thinking, I need to find hope. I need to find that there is a benevolence that cannot be defeated, that will always prevail. And, you know, I found that in this art, because there are times I set the intention and do the layers and layers, and the figures emerge. I never know what I'm going to do when I start. I just start from this intention, and you know, and laying the foundation. I found that by putting in some of the I use a lot of stencils of the sacred geometry, the seed of life, and Metatron cube, and I like to, is the yin yang, is that sacred geometry too? I don't know. I use all kinds of symbols, you know, I don't discriminate. I use everything. And always these paintings reveal a truth that I didn't know about before I did the painting. I never used to write or really enjoy writing. And I found that my way to write and to activate that flow of words of knowledge in me is to create the images. So I never write anything before I do the image. You know, I guess a number of people illustrate their stories and poems and stuff. I do it the other way. So it fits with me. And I'm real right brain. I always found that school and just life in general was very challenging because I was extremely right brain. And it's just so comforting to learn about all this and know that, you know, it wasn't that I was disabled or anything, or, you know, that I was learning differently. And it's helped me to bring things into balance where I'm not as extreme right brain, you know, and I guess that's the balance of the masculine and the feminine. So that's basically, yeah, I look around and I'm thinking, where did all this come from? And so it's helped me to tap into an awareness beyond my conscious and sometimes limited awareness of myself and the world. So anyway, yeah, I'm interested in knowing more about, because I love to incorporate. I really done a study of ancient symbols and you know, from what 10,000 BC and everything, to see what they were doing and, you know, the visual language. So yeah, I think it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And maybe this is the answer for the world. So if we all become balanced and really in touch with the energy reflected in the sacred geometry, maybe everything else will be taken care of. I like to think so. So thank you so much.
Well, I absolutely agree with that, Carolyn. I mean, we are creating a new earth right now. And to me, there's nothing more important than us to all be creating, like in our right brain. And I do want to share an example of how that's worked. I just came back from a 10-day project where we were creating a new program, and we were doing it in a retreat type setting, and we used the sacred geometry, we used art, we were at the beach, so we used singing bowls, and we engaged with the dolphins, and we meditated. And you know, I come from a corporate background, and you create a new program in corporate, you go to the whiteboard and you start, you know, bullet pointing and whatnot. And so this way of doing it was just profound because it was so inspired. It just dropped in, and you know, thinking about the geometry and you know, surrounded by nature and the geometry of nature reflecting back to us, and the frequency and vibration of the dolphins being there, all of that, just, it was such a profound way to create something new. And to me, that is just like a microcosm of what we can be doing on the macro. It's like, get out of the left brain, and how in the world can we create something new if we're relying on the left brain, which is a little filing cabinet of, you know, history. So yeah, I'm still riding high on that wave of, you know, bringing something new into the world in a different way.
Yeah, Mary.
I'm sorry, I'm being so blabby. I realize my 2 o'clock appointment is 1 o'clock Pacific time, so I have to get off in a second, but I just grabbed a couple drawings. What helps me too with my own sacred geometry that I've been doing over the years is I try to draw things just that balance me with my weird wiggly life. And when I even just sit and doodle these things, it, you know, it just, and then even when I worked on space station interiors for NASA, it was all about color and light and grounding. I created earth ground orientation that they had never even thought of, because I've needed it so much in my whole life. And all my art is really, I think the more we can teach art and do it ourselves, even just for us, gently, quietly. I try to sketch now, since COVID, now I try to sketch either 5 or 10 minutes a day. And I do a little heart in the morning, and I do it before I go to bed, and I add a little color. And you can see I bought a space station here 15 years ago, and all my art's on the walls here that honors me and helps ground me, looking at even my work, which I'd never put on my walls ever in my life, even though I've been teaching art to college and students and selling it to design clients all over the world. I never thought it was good enough. And I never thought it had as much meaning as I do now, because there's nothing purer than our own inner portal to our own heart that has come to life. But for all of us, I think even more so this year. So anyway, I'm so bummed. I thought I had to leave at 2, but it's 1 o'clock Pacific time. So thank you for letting me hog a lot of the time this morning. Oh, there's my book with Barbara Lamb. That's me at 5 years old when I went on the craft. Oh, Nadi, you have it right here.
Yeah, and I can't spotlight myself for some reason, but this is one of Mary's books. This is fabulous. It gives kids a new way to, validate their ET experiences, their contact experiences. I mean, this is a whole new or a whole other realm of discussion, right? The star kids that are coming in who already know the geometry, who are, advanced. And so I want to just acknowledge.
Oh, I really appreciate that, because I was never told my whole life that was on a craft with my dad. So I thought I was crazy for 70 years, and I probably was. But anyway, I'm so sorry I have to go now. I've got to do work. I'm teaching a health healing arts class. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you for letting me share. And I love you all so much. You just made my day and my whole weekend. So thank you all.
Thanks, Mary. Have a great class.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye. Yeah, Mary's great. I mean, Mary has lived one of the more extraordinary lives that you could possibly imagine. She's literally, when she showed you those 2 tunnel-like sculptures, she literally builds space stations. like you can't, I mean, it took me meeting her a bunch of times to actually go, oh my God, she's off planet a lot. She's designing stations for NASA and other, agencies. She blows my mind. I mean, you want to talk next level where the geometry can take you, she incorporates it into design in other worlds, literally, which is hard to. So she helps her art normalize contact, right? Because our civilization is just barely, some of us are starting to just barely acknowledge the existence of other worlds and other civilizations. Some of us, those of us in Sedona, are all in and talking to them all the time. So I'm glad she could participate. But Tammy, what some of the things you were saying really inspired a couple of things. So I don't know if you were you all set in what you were talking about?
Good.
And then also Carol, something you mentioned being either like slow or off in your process about how you interpreted things, or just that one of those judgy words about being different, and one of my one of the drums that I beat is this idea that anytime we want to consider ourselves crazy or some sort of limited derogatory term for our creative process, I always invite it's an invitation to switch out the word extraordinary anytime you want to use the word crazy or weird, because I personally believe we're totally advanced, right? Anybody tapping into art, anybody tapping into contact experiences or off-world realities, we have a program internalized that we're crazy. And so just to shift and go, no, wait, what if I'm extraordinary? What if I call that experience the other day, I had an extraordinary experience versus I had a crazy experience. There's such an up level in terms of claiming the beauty of who we are. So you inspired me to just remind of my passion, which is that's part of the reprogramming is, our languaging is so powerful.
I love that.
Yeah. Thanks, Penny. It was great to see you. Great to have you here. And, we'll just go as long as there's, interest in conversation. We don't have a time limit. So, so that the extraordinary to crazy. And then the other thing in terms of the ratios and the harmonics being perfectly proportioned, when we're talking about the right brain, left brain, one of the things that I love about using geometry for meditation is that the left brain is preoccupied with the details in the drawing, and that allows your right brain to come online in a way where the monkey mind has something to do versus sitting and trying to quiet the mind. You know, it's a great strategy that way. And once you get practiced at it and just are drawing the circles, you can let go a little bit. The left brain is appeased and the creative flow can come online. So I think those were two things. And yeah, so I see a lot of heads nodding. It seems like that resonates for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I know we've got a bunch of boxes and people just listening in, but I know we want to make space for anyone else who has any kind of reflection. It's always so rich to hear, you know, Carol, your shares, and Mary, it's so beautiful.
Hi.
Hi, Julie.
I like to talk about my experience with making the mandalas. I've only made, it's 4 or 5 of them. And what I learned during that experience, because I like the right and left brain, they're both engaged, it just kind of rebalances everything. And, but what we learned, because we use an ink, permanent ink, like a micron pencil. So when you do start your drawing, it's permanent. So it's kind of a bold move.
Yeah.
And when you make a mistake, you have to continue the pattern. So, and because that makes it a little looser as far as creating. But I found, and just these only 4 or 5 pieces that I've made, they all have a story. They all have a story. There's one of them that I made. I didn't realize because I made 3 mistakes. I was so frustrated with that one. But I kept repeating a pattern. I went, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. And a week later, I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, wait a minute. There's owls all the way around this thing. And it's made on a black background, so it looks very cosmic, like with the I wasn't crazy about working with the black background. So anyway, the owl came out and talked, you know, had a message for me. And another one that I made, again, I didn't notice, I think, till a couple of weeks later that there were bats all the way around. So like it's just that the universe is talking to me and this and mandalas, like who would have thought, like in a mandala there would be a message so clear, like the wisdom of the owl and the rebirth of the bat. It's just I find it so fascinating. I don't know if I'm ready to go like all the way structure, like, ooh, you know, I need a little bit of looseness to get me in before going full flown, like, oh, everything's so strict, you know, but I love it. I just love it.
Yeah, we're preaching to the choir, right? That's wonderful. That is, sorry, Tammy, I don't mean to hijack here. I feel like I'm talking too much, but that is so, I love that, how the owls and the bats and the emergence from the subconscious, you know, and also the teaching of just keep going, even when you know, glitch or do something that you weren't intending to. That is such a life lesson. Just keep going, and then beauty and owls. And it's amazing. I love it.
It was fascinating. Yes. Yeah. So I had to share, you know, it's just, I had to share.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that it reminds me of the way I paint. I've never taken any technique classes because I don't want to know what I'm doing wrong. And because I use painting as a process, exactly that. Like I just keep painting to see, like I can't wait to see what comes through, because it's like doing dream work or something. Things just pop up, and you know, a lot of times I'll just leave a painting sitting there for a while And that happened in this 10-day project. I knew there was something in the painting, but it was like I couldn't find it. And it was just so fascinating. I just had it sitting there. And then finally, one time when I walked by it, I was like, oh, now I see, now I see. It's kind of like those optical illusion things from the 70s and 80s, and so the painting informed me. So exactly that whole thing that Carl Jung talked about, just the subconscious and bringing all that forth, and right brain, all of this is just so powerful. So I'm so grateful to be here with people who get it, and that we can share all this with each other. Beautiful.
So beautiful. Yeah. I wanted to share my most recent 64. And then I think I'm feeling like, in terms of information, fairly complete. So we can open it up and see if there's other feedback, but I think we're sort of winding towards that. Yeah. So let me just share my 64 with you. Where did it go? So I was sequencing how to draw, because that's the fun for me. That's, everybody gets the steps. And this is the 64 star tetrahedron. When it's empty, it looks like this. And this is the 2D, and then there's also this is the 3D version, and there's also a 2D version, which is far less dimensional. But I was sequencing this, and it was like, oh, it's going to be green, same that like evolution. And then since working with this, I've been able to use it in my meditations, right? I've been able to envision it in front of me, and how it has the technology to send love into the grid. I can't figure out how to do this, but this geometry does, and it's this beautiful emerald etheric light, and it's so lovely. And then it also helps me, transport to other places that I needed to go. So, that drawing, Tammy and Julie and Howard and Carol, that it just takes you. It allows for that next evolutionary process. So I had the inspiration to share that with you all, and just the drawing is so transformational. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, truly technology.
Yes. Great use of the word. Yes. Yeah. Oh, this has been so fun. I love it. Anybody else have thoughts or questions they want to contribute before we wrap it up? Yeah, Carol.
Are you going to let us know what classes that you teach?
Right, I know the buildup, right? Yeah, I did. I wrote this in here. I put my website in the chat. Now, so it's Galactic Rose Geometry. I've been absolutely remiss in making a schedule, because part of me writes the month of December off because people classes are a little bit beyond the stress of the holidays. So, but I will jump on today or tonight, because I actually wanted to make a class, like a follow-up class for the call. So, before we get too into the holidays, let me just look at the schedule. Plus I've been going around town, and that's what happens. You start talking about it and everybody's like, oh, I want to do that too. So I need to make a class in town too. I think probably Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, like the 16th, 17th, or 18th, I'll host a call. I usually do them in the evening Pacific time. Oh, that's usually so late for people. So maybe I'll try like a 5 o'clock Pacific time, which ends up still being 8 for East Coast, but it's such a trick to find out what time is going to work for the most people. So I will, does daytime, just to get a show of hands, daytime, could you do? It's great to see you, Julie. Thanks for joining us. Maybe I'll just post a bunch. I'll just post one in the daytime and one in the evening. So do daytimes work for people mostly, or evenings?
Either.
What was that? Carol, what was that? I didn't catch.
Both.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. If anybody has.
Just not early in the morning.
Oh, no, me neither. Not at all. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Well, I'll try to make a couple. So point being, I will
go and make an event, and then let's just say Monday, if you want to check back on the website, or if you want to put your email in the chat, I will follow up and make sure that you have that information. That's a good way to do it. Yeah. Yeah, and then Lee, it looks like you were jumping on for a second.
I just want to say, just so exciting for me. The whole conversation is wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much. I'm so glad that whoever connects these things connected me in.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. One of the things that I've been getting guidance on is, excuse me, I thought my work was all about working with older women, but I'm being told that my work is really moving to working with children.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't know anything about children. What are you talking about? But I just have this this whole thing. I'm also a flower essence practitioner. I mean, I feel like the flowers are carrying those expanded ranges of color now. They're beginning to go into that, and that's part of that sacred geometry stuff too. And that that's the medicine that the children need, and the CCT would help them so much too. So anyway, and just listening to everything you're saying, it's just like really ringing the bells for me. So thank you so much.
That is so exciting. I'm just trying to cut and paste everyone's email, so I'm sorry for the typing. But I so agree with you, Lee. The Star Kids coming on, they're so advanced, and they come into this bizarro world. Like, this place is just nuts if you're a multidimensional being and have your psychic skills online and speak geometry and speak the universal language of math. I'm with you, and creating a platform and a welcoming conversation for them. Mary, the book that she made is with a woman named Barbara Lamb, who is an incredible resource. There have been a couple of people that have been pioneering being available for kids' contact experiences, right? These kids that are, told that they're crazy, right? They normalize and they go, no, that was actually your spirit guides coming in and talking to you, and you have guides, and we have all sorts of non-physical beings, just validating that reality that kids have. And one of the things that she talks about is, so many of the Star Kids are diagnosed ADHD, they're medicated, because we don't know how to manage, we don't know how to move with their advanced systems. And so she talks about how ADHD actually stands for always dialed into higher dimensions. Isn't that right? It's just right.
You like that?
Yeah, so figuring out how we can up level to be with the kids. I love that you're hearing that. That's wonderful. That just thrills me. On the same page. Let me just make sure I've got everyone's email. So I've got Lee and Carol and Jude and Tiffany and Tomo, I believe. Yeah, let me just, now I have to, I'm totally like not sophisticated in getting technology sometimes. Tammy, do you want to sort of give any, I guess if there's anybody else, or Tammy, if you have last thoughts while I'm figuring this out, that'd be great.
I guess just my final thoughts are just how just having these conversations just feel like so expansive to me. And I appreciate everybody's willingness to share, and even Lee, your last thoughts about the kids. As you were talking about that, I was just thinking, the main thing is for us to listen and go where who's going to be teaching, listen and connect. There's this mutual exchange. I'm thinking about even contacting Nadi. It was just like such a random email for me to be like, hey, I just want to talk to you. And she said, yes, so like just following those nudges feels really powerful right now, potent.
Yeah, absolutely. And please do reach out, because a lot of what I do is about finding the others, right? Like we just need to find each other, like what Tammy was saying. So reach out. I love having conversations about these kinds of things because it's just so nourishing and it's so validating. And that's what we need to do for each other, because we just get stronger and more confident in terms of talking to mainstream people who don't have any exposure or any idea to this. You know, you get off you go back into your friends in your group and you're like, oh my God, sacred geometry and healing work and all of this, and it goes together, and they're like, what? And then that collective consciousness really expands. Tammy, I think you mentioned in the beginning that this, like, calls like these are how we are changing the paradigms, and that's what's really exciting about it for me too. So yeah, that's so great. And I got everybody's, I hope I got everybody's email. I think I did. And I will send out an email on Monday with the classes that I've gotten. If you know, I mean, if you want to look back, I also do classes on, you know, light language and crop circles and the interspecies communication with whales and dolphins and, you know, advanced civilizations. So like I said, I just love having the conversation and meeting all of you. This has been wonderful. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Nadi.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
much
so much,
wisdom.
both of you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
I think we'll finish up and be in touch and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.